So how does genetics work? Like kind of reintroducing your old high school biology class. I have to say I was never a huge fan of science. Kind of interesting that I have a kid who loves science, who's majoring in forensic science, but never my cup of tea. So when I had kids with with diagnosed with genetic issues, I had to like go back and kind of figure this out. So, and I got most of these notes from a great presentation from Nergan, which is a Northeast Regional Genetic Collaborative. They have a lot of great presentations on this that are on their website. So how does genetics work? Most cells contain chromosomes. You can see in the cell model here where the chromosomes are. Those chromosomes contain DNA, which is tightly wrapped around them. Humans have 23 sets of chromosomes. We have a 23 numbered chromosome and one set of sex chromosomes for a total of 46. There are instances where you could have more, like monosomy, where you, like Turner syndrome, where you have just one of these sex chromosomes. And, or you have, the most popular genetic disorder is trisomy disorder, where you have three perfectly good chromosomes, but they happen to be three of them. The most common genetic disorder is trisomy 21 or Down syndrome. So there's three chromosomes here, and they would have 47 chromosomes. You inherit one set of chromosomes from each of your parents. Those chromosomes contain genes and tell the body how to operate. You can think of those chromosomes as a guidebook to making a human. So like I said, this is just basic stuff. And going from cell to the double helix, which you might recognize is what we look at when we think of DNA. For an organism, to grow and function properly, cells must divide and produce new cells. And each cell will contain those 46, 45, 47, whatever the number is of chromosomes that you have. Whole chromosomes or pieces may be added, deleted, or completely on a chromosome that you're not expecting them to be on and switched. Chromosomes vary in shape, but generally have long arms and short arms. So if you hear someone talking about their child's genetic disorder that says they are missing a piece of the long arm of chromosome 6, you can kind of visualize that they're missing a section of the chromosome itself. And each chromosome is one very long strand of DNA tightly wrapped, and the double helix represents one side for each parent that made the individual, and the genetic code for that person is in between those two lines there. You can see the double here that says base pairs. That is where you will find the genetic code that tells the body what to do, but only when it's needed. It's not on all the time. All right, so understanding genes and variants. Genes are a section of the DNA chain, and they can be analyzed for differences when you're looking at genetic testing or analysis. It's estimated that the human genome contains 30,000 genes, which obviously is a very large number. It could be more because the human genome is currently being mapped by the Human Genome Project. But even as we are 99.9% identically the same, that 1%, that 0.1% that's different about us is a lot of genes to analyze. A lot of genes to analyze. And it could be, there's variants that happen just because they happen. 60% or we all inherit 60 variants that our parents didn't have. They just happen randomly, and they can be beneficial. They can cause they can not cause a difference in the individual, or it's something that causes an issue, and then it can be identified as causing an issue. But it's sometimes hard to tell if a variant is significant or not. Some are known to cause issues. They're easily identifiable when you do genetic testing, and they can see that there's a genetic variant there, and they can identify that because it's been confirmed in other people, and that results in a confirmed diagnosis. But you can also use genetic testing analysis is a good tool to rule out diagnoses. When Aiden went through, he was our first guinea pig, and when he went through genetic testing, we used it to rule out Lloyd-Dietz syndrome and also genetic or Fragile X syndrome. So that was really important for us to be able to rule that out for him. All right, so let's move on. And this is just very simple. Let's talk about how genes work, and we're going to talk about Declan's epic sledding adventure. he this picture makes me laugh because he came back to me this way and I went, what happened to your face? So we're just going to talk very simply about how genes work. So everything that makes up the human body comes from genes and tells the body how to make proteins that allow the body to function when needed. So let's just look at skin as one example. This is my youngest son, Declan. He was on a Boy Scout winter camping trip to Highland Forest in Tully, New York, and there's this really, really big hill. And in the middle of it was a jump, and Declan decided he was going to go over the jump because he's a bit of a daredevil. And when he got hurt, and I look at the picture, you can see he was wearing glasses too, so he has an imprint from his glasses. I'm happy to say his glasses were okay. When he got hurt, his body signaled his skin gene to make protein that would repair the abrasion. How quickly or slowly that happened and what it's used to fix that wound is all programmed by his genes. And they are different genes that gave him those blue eyes and blonde hair. The boys have a really good friend who also has a connective tissue disorder, but they have different connective tissue disorder. Declan's skin heals very slowly. He still has that mark. If you look closely, you can still see that mark 2 months later on his forehead. And that's just the way he's programmed. That's why his genes are programmed. He has a good friend who has Ehlers-Danlos syndrome, type 1. If that had happened to his friend would have a dent in his forehead because he lacks collagen to repair the wound in the forehead. Declan luckily has the collagen, but his skin is still red there. So I hope that gives you a little bit of illustration. So when Declan fell, the gene that signaled that we needed to repair Declan, and thankfully it did, because we don't have that on him forever. So. But that's just one example of how genes work.